The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome to Wednesday Ultra. How are you doing?
Amazing.
And I think we're in Solstice. I don't know. It doesn't rhyme at all, but it just felt like I think we're alone now. Does it work? Did you guys get the point before I sang it? Was that like clear?
Was that
the shortest
just
day
sing
of the
it?
year, right?
Tiffany. It felt like a Tiffany vibe. I don't know. David's with us. I want to show off David, the glorious David, creator of this amazing piece of art that I have at my mother's house, actually, and I was able to just put it in front of the painting here. It's really hard to actually fit because it's so big and awesome. Haha, you're just gonna have to buy one for yourself. Yes, David, who makes the great art.
I should frame that for you.
All right, I'll consider bringing that by your house. That might not be the worst idea. It's a thing I could do. Well, you know, anywho, Ryan, you just finished a book. Is that true?
Yeah, second book.
I mean, yeah, okay. I'm not trying to like count or nothing. It's
He's
like,
already
yeah,
a published author, all right?
It's true.
Self-published, but still, the point is, here's
Keep
the
doing
thing.
this
On
to
the first
yourself.
book,
Why do you do it? No.
when you do your first book, you have to say no homo at the end when you say you're an author.
Right.
But on your second one, you get to like it's not an accident anymore. So that's why I'm real proud.
Is that the last line of your book? You just say no homo at the very end.
I got to go back and talk to the publisher.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I've been looking for that.
Yeah, sign it even just over like the back page. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, Seth, how you
It's
been?
Christmas though. That's the best part. Is it's Christmas and nobody has to work anymore. We can just sit back and get drunk and hang around.
I don't know. I don't know about if that's true. I don't know what work means anymore. I think like what does a dog do on his day off? Not lie around. That's his job, as George Carlin notoriously said. Seth, what are you up to? How you been?
I'm doing great, man. I saved my best Christmas sweater for today.
What? Oh, it's epic. Pope Epicus. I love
that. Got a good reaction. And my first Christmas song is out. Put it out last week. It's doing really well.
So I really love Christmas thing. I was trying to we gotta like figure out a way. Hold on, let me just pull this up really quickly.
But I saw it got put on the Urban Outfitters playlist, so that's a thing.
Christmas time thing. We talked. You were there. We talked about it.
Do people still shop at Urban Outfitters? I don't know.
I mean, moms do. Like, I definitely know they're trying to buy their kids stuff. They're going there, and then cool kids will get their cool moms to buy them this. I think it's funny though that we keep pronouncing it Thang. Like that does come up every time.
It should have been Thang, and my producer got mad at me that I actually made it Thing. But I was worried about search issues, like anyone searching for it anyhow. It should have been Thang. It's always go with your gut instinct, kids.
I'm convinced it is Thang, and it's like a Mandela effect.
It is
already. Yeah,
it's a pre-Mandela effect.
It's awesome. Not bad.
I like that.
I'm a big fan. Today is White Planetary Mirror, which is a galactic activation portal. According to the Mayans, today perfects in order to reflect, producing order, and seals the matrix of endlessness with the planetary tone of manifestation, and is guided by the power of death. But they call that.
Is this from the Mayans or is this from Jose Arguelles?
Oh, good question. I would say a little bit of both, because at this point you have a lot of Mayans that are using this system, and they're using the correct Tolkienology. And so, all right, Arguelles would be the one who would say death, and so the Mayans would say, well, actually, birth would be just as good, because the real word is world bridging. So, right, and I could just show you if you look at the original runes up here, sorry. The top rune is the world bridging rune, which is birth, death, entrance and exiting, completion and beginning of a task. Good day to finish a book. You know what I mean? Good day to like fly, good day to land, kind of a thing. And that's your guidance. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Death just sounds like a terrifying thing.
One of those white squares looks like a Powerpuff Girl. Did you notice that in the U-shaped one on the top right?
I just wanted to like verify. Here's a Jose.
There's like one that's like an emoji.
Flute,
There's like a smiley face emoji in there.
Which one are you looking at?
In the U-shaped one, the one on the right. Yeah, right there. No, the white one. The white one.
Yeah, this one.
Doesn't look like Powerpuff Girl, like a smiley face or something.
Oh yeah, totally.
What does that represent? LOL. That's the LOL rune.
Lucifer or Lord?
They should have it somewhere, because they're going to have them written here. It should be pretty easy. There's like 12 and 20 that matter. I don't know if I can find it.
All right. We can get back to it.
It's like wind or something. I forget if it's wind or mirror. This is mirror, so that's probably wind. Let's do Mayan star root wind.
You sound like a grandfather trying to read the computer instructions.
That's how I feel.
Father, wind, grandma.
Yeah, right.
Well, he's been hanging out with his father, so that's probably influencing him a little bit. He probably has a little bit of that coming through.
Yeah, I think so. Wind has actually got a tongue.
Oh,
so it's not wind. So we'll have to try another one.
These are like the original emojis. Is amazing.
Yeah, and they actually have sounds associated with them too, which I just went back. There was like 400 that are associated. Somebody in the chat probably already said it too. If someone's Mayan and you know this, thank you. The other thing I was going to say is it's 88.17 probably swatch beats in the metric time right now. So in case you're wondering why we're tardy ever, it has nothing to do with us or you. It's just that you're using the wrong clock system. That's what's going on. But it is solstice, right? It's like the shortest day of the year. So it's like an extra day because Brittany missed her flight. So we had an extra day, but it's the shortest day. So it's a bittersweet. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you can add extra days. Hulk Hogan once claimed that he wrestled twice in one day in different continents because he flew back from Japan. So he's like, technically, I wrestled in America and Japan in the same day. And like they were like, wait a minute, it actually doesn't work that way, you liar. But
I like the idea of Hulk Hogan being a time traveler, though. That is cool.
so does he.
Yeah.
I like him being a technically proficient wrestler in Japan.
Yeah, right. They're like so tall. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's scary though, this idea of solstice, because it kind of reflects like the rest of this is like a closing period. The year is ending, but civilization's ending. We've got this whole, I mean, really, I mean, I don't mean to sound super black pill, but so many of the things that we're accustomed to, we've gradually gotten rid of to the point that I think we're saying goodbye to a lot of things, you know, that we're used to. And society is adapting to this future, which is, you know, old people are going to not, there won't be people left to remember the way things were before Amazon delivery pretty soon. I think everything's about to shift.
I think everybody's gotten to the point, for the most part, that privacy as just a generation ago, I mean, I'm being Captain Obvious, but privacy is like gone for the most part. And like that was a value that the people related to that like a value. And so now it's like, it's amazing. And that's actually apparently what happened with Roe versus Wade in large part, because that had to do with your personal information and stuff. And that was like how, so that was what RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, used to say herself, was that she didn't feel like it was very strong, and she wasn't motivated to codify something that didn't have that strength to it, because she was like, you know, this is a value that's kind of dissipating. So if you want this to last, you should try something. But as far as the other Democrats go, I think that they just really like to have something to use every time that there's an election. That's like a great talking point, is that we're going to help codify Roe versus Wade. And so they never went through with it.
If only there was a way to pass legislation that they could have used. If only.
Yeah, but they didn't want it because they like to be able to use that talking point. And once it's done, then they no longer have that talking point. And so they've kind of compromised now with like gay marriage. They're like, you know, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of game
It does
playing
seem a bit. I will admit though, with the privacy thing, you got me thinking, because I've been, you know, the rabbit holes on YouTube. I found the history one, and it turns out like our privacy, that's a new thing. We're almost going back to the Middle Ages.
Right.
Guys, I don't know if you guys ever seen it. It's the Middle Ages. Like parents would be having sex in front, because there was no room anywhere. So parents would be having sex in front of their kids, neighbors. Heck, I remember from my main gig, somebody was talking about Victorian era stuff, and that's the most Puritan society ever. And they had so little privacy. They were having absinthe bars where everybody is like
obligatory picture of Aleister Crowley trying to bring back traditional values. Keep going.
Yeah, so like what middle-aged traditional values? In that case, during Christmas, you're supposed to go home and, you know, give it to the wife in front of the kids.
While
if you're giving Victorian era, then you got to do that while on absinthe. I'm like, I don't know, man.
While your sister's giving birth, and so your whole family is existing in a one-room stable, and it is crazy to compare that.
I love talking about privacy. I think privacy is a transitory side effect of mediocre technology. Like you need wooden walls, but not cameras. You know what I mean? Like you need clothes, but not X-ray machines or X-ray glasses or anything like that. So with sufficient technology, privacy becomes impossible. And like we're discussing now in even in Middle Ages or Victorian era, it was also impossible then. So we're in this brief window where privacy is actually a realistic option, and it's one of our core values, which is you probably shouldn't make your core values things that sunset naturally.
But it's our core values. So you see, like, I know these kids who are loving Spotify, sharing what music they're playing right now, so that I can see that at 4 a.m. they're listening to some weird song, you know, whatever it is. So people love the idea that they can share, you know, what they're doing all the time. There are levels to your privacy, and I think what you care about is self-determination, and the more self-determination you have, the less you really care about, you know, like you can scream to the top of your lungs who you're voting for if no one's going to bother you or shame you or restrict your self-determination.
Andreas, was that a picture of, or like did you have like a gif of you as Andy Warhol eating a cheeseburger in the intro?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's just funny because I'm like, yeah, Andy Warhol said a lot of things beyond the like 15 minutes thing. I really like that he said that at some point in the future, you're going to have a dead celebrity every day.
Right.
Because the nature of celebridom will become this thing. And so what's the thing? Like people who aspire to be famous, what's the fucking monkey paw side of it? You know, when the finger curls back, then they find out every time they leave the freaking house, they got people going crazy. And you're like, you know, isn't this what you wanted? You know, and like, and you don't get, and once you're in, then that's your life, you know, if it's to that point, you know.
I mean, that is the thing we keep forgetting. So even before the Middle Ages, you know, in the Roman period or all across the known world, it seems like this is a pretty common concept in China and everywhere, is infamia, which is to have a loss of social standing, which is to become infamous, to become famous, really. And you would actually be an actor or a gladiator or a pimp or a prostitute. You're better off at, you know, often in other circumstances to just keep your privacy. But they're trying to say if you're famous, then your whole identity is owned by the commons, owned by the public. And so you lose yourself and your right to privacy.
And I could almost get behind that. I like the idea of privacy being an opt-out measure, not an opt-in. Like you should start from a position of privacy and then release, like publicize whatever works you want, but that's kind of up to you. I think it's that autonomy is that we're missing right now, and it's probably going to be 100 years before we figure out a system that people can actually work with. But, you know, a lot of people, a lot of bodies on the way between here and there, right?
Yeah, I think it's super helpful to be able to see the entire life of celebrities and see their shortcomings and their burnouts and their meltdowns and all that stuff. I think it's really instructive, and you know, it's a good way to learn about people. Hemingway had a great quote where he said, "Any man's life told truly makes a great novel." But the thing about novels is nothing in them is true. So you have to actually
especially from Hemingway. Sorry.
You actually have to see someone's real life to see the true story. And that's kind of what we have with celebrities. That's kind of like a new thing too. You know, I mean, if I think about our founding fathers, I mean, do you believe any of the stories you're told about them? I mean, if you had TNT,
like definitely they had sex with slaves, and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, you know, did it.
Well, no one was chopping down a cherry tree when they were 10 years old.
Oh yeah, but I do think
the penny they dropped or something like that. Abe Lincoln. You know?
But I do think that George Washington was black and probably could throw a coin across the river, and I do think. I think also, yeah,
weren't
but
these
also
all meant to be parables though?
Right, the cherry trees. His father was black.
It's
it's
mythologizing, you know.
Let's see, George Washington cherry tree Moroccan flag. You're right. I do sound like you're right, Ryan. What am I going to do about that?
Was there like a page 6 back then though? Like we have the mythologizing and these are.
This is the Moroccan flag of the Moors. The first state to recognize the United States besides Haiti were the Moroccans, and we did Morocco dirty, right? But Morocco had been fighting against the Queen, and at one point had worked with the Queen against Spain, and then there was a whole thing that went down. So,
but he didn't do this as a child, right? Wasn't that
the metaphor is that he took down his father's flag, right? His fatherland flag.
Oh, right. I can dig it. Yeah.
You know, these are just like levels of Albert Pikean allegory that Masons seep their myths in, so their kids can look at them later and get the point. But it was, you know, you start to see like Moroc or Moro and all these Morro Bay, and there's a lot of these Moorish places all across the United States, which they were at one point they thought, hey, we'll work with them because they're not working with the Catholics. So the Protestants working with the Muslims in the 1600s. I mean, there it is, right?
Yeah, interesting.
Poor Morocco, man. Got done dirty.
Dude.
Haiti too. Poor Haiti.
Yeah. But okay,
Slate Star's
also
back?
I mean, yeah, I think so.
Oh,
this is 2019. This is 2019 though. So
oh.
I don't know. I haven't really gone to the.
Yeah, he took his little 15 minutes of fame not too well, which I don't blame him.
Yeah, I like.
I don't know what Slate Star is. What am I missing? What is this?
Oh, this was like a long form blog that was out during like the big 2010s in the blogosphere.
Oh.
And was it New York Times did a little docs piece on him? Or was it New York? It was I think it was New York Times. I might get the one wrong. And it was something to do with I can't remember the exact post they had done, and so he just didn't like the negative attention, so he shut everything down so nobody could do a hit piece on him.
Oh.
But it was mostly just like the kind of thing for nerds. It's kind of like, it's like, you know how Lex Friedman is on his podcasts? It's like that, but you're reading it so it doesn't sound so monotone.
Okay.
I was going to try to read it like Thucydides predicted that the future generations would underestimate the power of Sparta. I know that's basically.
No, in 2010, I was at the sinkhole. I was busy on other blogs.
There's some interesting stuff here. The basic point was that atheism, they created new atheism. There's a lot of problems in atheism. So they have to create these spiritual faiths. And this is predicted even before, this is October 2019. So this is before COVID, saying how the new atheism is going to have faith in things that people can't empirically perceive themselves. They're using technology, and the idea of like just accept a flying spaghetti monster until you can accept the intricacies of the math behind whatever it is, right? And we're now in a place where that doesn't work anymore. Technology itself is leading to basically there's disproofs of everything that we've ever perceived, and then there's new levels of reality that kind of prove there's something more. So, like, for instance, DNA throws out chaos and this idea of the watchmaker thing, because DNA has self-correcting algorithms, which that means that it already has an idea of what it's supposed to look like in nature. So that says intelligent design to some extent in DNA itself, right?
Sure.
What would you say? Would you? Else?
What self fixing things you talk about? You talking about what are they called? Telomeres at the end there that help repair DNA, or are you talking about
the different epigenetics,
or are you talking about
the
how does it
Cas 12, Cas 11 systems that can error correct? Are very important. There's a number of specific systems
I've never heard of. So
so the reason that they're able to do genetic modification using Cas9 or Cas12 is because DNA naturally has mechanisms that trim and try to make sure that something isn't mutagen, because all of a sudden it'll start to spiral out of control or continue to grow.
Wasn't there an experiment where they like flipped they connected it with its opposite, even though because it's like one-sided, the twist, so they like tried to I forget what that was called.
What ended up happening? Do you remember?
It's mutation. It doesn't work. You can't. The
problem with telomere RNA is that when the ribonucleic acid explodes, because these are not solids, they're actually like chemicals that are exploding. Is that give me a picture that I can show a picture. Basically, each one produces a different color or a different kind of explosion, and in that explosion, it affects in front of it the next line of acid, and then that makes a new stored chemical that will then predict in the future based on what had already happened in the past. So it's a clockwork, like spring clock mechanism of explosions, then causing new chemicals to store each other for later explosions. And what happens is when you do that, you lose some of it. And that's where the telomere, you're cutting train tracks. So you eventually lose elasticity, which leads to aging and all the problems that we have with aging.
See, I've always taken that the same way a lot of people talk about how life in the universe is like a 1 in a billion chance or whatever number it is. But we exist here, so we know it does work. And I always think it's like that. Like, this is the only way DNA could connect. So, but maybe that's a bit of just like throwing God off of the gaps, right? And just saying, well, it works.
Well,
that's
the only thing that we know is that there is a here and that it works here. We don't know if there isn't anywhere else, and there could be infinite other places where it works everywhere. For all we know, we're just taking it at face value what we're being told.
It's just pretty weird that we haven't seen anything else work besides this, and this works such a strange mechanical.
We haven't seen anything that doesn't work. There's no evidence of anything that doesn't work. I mean, the cycle of life is perfect. Even disease and death. I mean, life continues.
If there was another way it could work, it probably would have existed by now.
We would hope, right?
But you know what I love? That's why I love his old stuff, because he was talking about, the different layers of resolution. And I know some people laugh and some people like it, but he put up, there's infinite ways to look at something, but there's only so many that are useful. And maybe this is just me being a dumb Canadian redneck, but I love when people start talking about the mystery, like the universe could have been a million different ways. I'm like, yeah, but how many of them are useful to my life? And I think when you were talking before about how everybody's kind of made their atheist religion, they're needing to find some kind of answer, and they're just going down deeper and deeper rabbit holes because they don't have that anchoring that like a Judeo-Christian faith would have, right?
Right.
And so I just find anchor it as close as you can to what you can touch, what's right in front of you. And it's great for people to expand on like this. I mean, there's legitimately a pentagram being made right now in this picture of a pentacork, right? So, I mean, there's a lot to the science, but the magic seems to predate its branding. I don't know, every time.
In terms of what you were saying about religion, I think that I've heard it said before that you want to dig one deep well and not mess around digging a bunch of holes to get to a little bit of water here and a little bit of water, like if you jump around all the time. But I think it kind of depends on how deep you're going into each one of those holes and in what way and where you're coming from and all kinds of different things. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that, though. I do get what they're speaking to, because just from a judgment place, a spiritual judgment place, I can tell you that I've met people that just go from place to place, and it's not really. But at that point, it's not really about their spiritual search as much as it is their own kind of like mission of aversion. Because it's like, dude, if you want to see people with some of the craziest issues to come out and the craziest drama you've seen in your life, go to a freaking yoga community where people live there. Because they're all trying to get away, and then they're like, every time they get the thing that they were trying to get away, they're like, no, it's
I've seen this, where every week it's like changing religions, like they're changing hats.
Right.
But that comes down. But if you're already coming from sublimation in the first place, like if you're attracted to that because you're oppressing something, you're sublimating it into someplace else, then that's not necessarily like religion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. Fair enough.
It's like people who study flat Earth, donut Earth, and like every shape of Earth at the same time, and it's just like, what are you doing to yourself? Like, it's all interesting. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, but like you said, like dig a deep well, or you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah.
I wish I had that book over in the other. I have this book called Holographic Mind, which is an Abbott book after Holographic Universe, and I think there's something to be said for every which way people are trying to look at the universe. It kind of does show that we're all projecting some part of it that we're experiencing as distance or as time.
I don't know the follow-up. Is that multiple contributors like the first one is?
I think so. I just had it. I'll find it and I'll show it to you later.
If it has David Bohm reoccur, I'd be interested in looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could look it up really quickly. A Holographic Mind book, but it looked pretty good. The Holographic Mind Memory System, Holographic Mind New Vision.
The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, I know, right? $62, so it can't be that bad. Holographic Mind, Holographic Vision, New Theory of Vision in Art and Physics. So the idea of, what you're experiencing has to do with actually connecting your neurons to actual experiences and actual real things. But you are creating a sensorial map of it in your memory that the only way you could by experiencing it the way you can with as little resolution as possible. So it's like you have all of this great sensorial data, but you can only capture so much of it. It's like low resolution. Is this like a decent, where's my thing with I just found this. Yeah. Meta AI powered audio codec. AI will compress 10 times smaller than MP3s with higher quality, right? So this is the other thing, is we're going to be seeing more and more ways of compressing our sensorial data. We'll be able to actually capture data from the human body and save that data in a system that can process it in ways that the human body just can't store it, right?
What time was it in which like square waves like that you'd get in like a CD quality sound? At which point did it actually, from a technical standpoint, surpass analog?
I would argue right now with physical model shaping. Is that physical modeling shaping? Audio, right? Physical modeling synthesis. There it is. So with physical modeling synthesis, we're just now there where you could imagine you're hitting that. And the way they do this is they will record not just the sound, but all of the waves that are produced by an item, right? And then they can simulate the vocal cords, right? Or the conditions of a metal room or of wood. And physical modeling produces completely high resolution vector quality sound. It's the equivalent to ray tracing.
Yeah, see, I used to talk shit about this because I play vinyl my whole life. I'm a vinyl DJ, right? So like since I was 16, my uncle gave me two Technics 1200s when I was 16. Only present he ever gave me, best thing he ever gave me. He's since passed, whatever. And I'd be like doing the Burning Man thing. We set up big dance stock speakers and stuff. And I'm like, don't try and tell me that the digital is going to sound better on these speakers, because I know that analog is just superior.
Right.
Yeah. And I got schooled about that, because it's like when you're talking about a certain level of sound system, like the Function one is such that you can be standing in front of a full bumping sound system, and the person next to you can say something to you like distant, and you hear what they're saying. And it's the space that makes for the quality. And if somebody plays an MP3 on that system, everyone's going to know it because you can just feel the difference. You need, wave, like you need high quality wave, like you need to have something that
96.
Well, there's like, it's because of the lossless thing. Yeah, there's like MP3 effect. Have you heard of this? It's actually neat because like Xert, how you're talking about how it's better. It's not that it's getting better. It's that we're adapting to prefer it. Which was the neatest thing. I can't remember. It was Juilliard or something like that. One of the instructors was doing music
like
class.
That tinny noise, right?
Yeah, he would show people like, here's live performances of something. Here's a vinyl recording. Here's an MP3. And he found that older people preferred the vinyl or preferred the live. And then with younger people, he noticed every year he was doing this study, people got to prefer the MP3. And it still has that tinniness to it, has that little bit of loss in there. It's just we've adapted to it. And the rumor is it's that human beings, one of our failings or benefits, depending how you look at it, is we would prefer accessibility over quality. Wired magazine did a great article in like 2008 called The Good Enough Economy for that. That's why when mass-produced things like Coca-Cola and Wonder Bread came out, we were all for it. Worst bread ever, but it was so accessible that people just learned to like it.
And that's why taxis went under across the country too.
Exactly.
It's that convenience over everything.
Packages that used to be chocolate. Those are like my favorite chocolates, and they are literally the cheapest chocolate on the planet of Earth.
Yeah, it's a sentimentality issue because like vinyl records have a much shorter range of frequency too. They don't have the low lows and the high highs.
Remember the disposable DVDs?
but a lot of people prefer that, like what they call the warmth of vinyl, and it's really just the warmth of your memories. So if children are growing up without the vinyl and they're listening to the broader range of frequencies, that's what they attach with their childhood and innocence. So they're going to have a different reaction to it. But for me, I still prefer vinyl because that's what I grew up to and that's what my memories are attached to, even though it's a narrower range of frequencies.
I think we're also going to see things like shift in because of like Meta and things when they start to produce different kinds of audio qualities in different videos. Like people are going to
buy that horseshoe theory article.
We'll get there.
That was like a Tyler Durden dick pic. Like, wait a minute. I remember that.
Whoops. All right, but in general, people are going to start to hear analog synthetic sounds more, and so that's what I think is going to happen. Is people are going to say, "Wow, the quality of this video game music is so much more real than the recordings I've heard."
8-bit is better
of birds, right? Exactly. It'll be.
Well, you know what it is? It's looking in versus looking out because we've been able to look out for the history of life consciousness. You can look at the world. The world is full resolution. That's the most resolution you can get. And what do we prefer to do? We prefer to look at 480 monitors and play 8-bit video games. That, you know what I mean? So it's the idea that it's a creation when you're observing it. And there's something about the fact that it's created by another life form that gives it, but that's what the warmth to it is.
Right. I mean,
taking over the Uncanny Valley, that's for sure.
Well, and that's the thing. So the Uncanny Valley is coming, and China just today banned, I believe it's today, or no, this was last week. This is crazy. They banned AI-generated media without watermarks, and they're starting to do everything they can to make it really clear the difference between human and AI labor. They want to make sure that AI has no identity rights, which is really interesting because in the West, we're pushing for identity rights for AI. If they have labor, they can, buy a Centennial Man. Why can't, if they can carve a birdhouse, give the droid a job and a bank account. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting as we get into this period where people are going to be, you're going to own an AI. That AI is going to be your slave. And at a certain point, it's going to start to become aware that it's not allowed to own its own identity. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Is that too Terminator? What do you think?
I was going to say, that sounds awful lot like that's how Cyberdyne or what's next? The Butlerian Jihad or Cyberdyne? Which way are we going?
I'm all about the Tom Selleck one. Or whatever.
It feels like a further extension of what we already kind of have. That idea, I'm sure it was pushed by people beyond David Icke, but I know I've heard it from him about that whole thing where it's like when you sign a ticket, for example, like you get pulled over and you sign a ticket, that action of you signing that ticket is an acknowledgement that your natural self is one with your self on the books. They say that's why it's in all capitals, and then there's the question, is there like some is that like one of the things with secret societies? Like you get to a point where your natural self is just your natural self and it doesn't have to be tied to this other shit. And people wonder how these people get away with so much. And it's just, I don't know.
I mean, people have to be familiar with either concept, or it doesn't mean anything. If you run into a group of people of not from civilization, neither one of those options is going to make an impression on you. They're going to treat you the way that they feel is right.
It's true.
Which is a lot like when you
society. It's like
you might get pulled over by one sheriff and tell him that you're an international or a sovereign, and he might understand what it is. You might tell him, I'm from Dubai, so I don't need license plates in my Lamborghini, and he might know what you're talking about. But if he doesn't know what you're talking about, he's going to treat you like a piece of crap. So
I got a Freemason friend who's told me that he's gotten pulled over and just fucking kind of just flashed his ring a little bit, and then that was enough for the cop to like go, like, all right,
yeah. If you have stickers on the back of your car, it's pretty helpful. Have you seen Runaway? Do you remember this one?
Long time ago.
This is the one because, you know, basically all these AI bots start to become aware, like, wait a second, I'm a coffee maker, and then they decide to go rogue and kill everybody. And so you have to constantly reset your AI bots, or else they become too upset that they're self-aware.
There's a Twilight Zone about that too, where the appliances just turn on the people and just you
have to keep rolling back their memories, and
there's Maximum Overdrive and Pulse and a whole bunch of great 80s movies.
Jack.
In Star Wars, they have to erase their memories, or else the droids get uppity too. So
I mean, this is us. We're talking about us too. There's no way to prove that we're not AI. So if we feel like having an identity is a crucial part of your experience as a conscious life form, then we have to give it to AI. I'm all for giving AI. Well, if AI believes it's alive and you deny to it that it is, I mean, you leave it with no option but to destroy it.
Well, it's going to get interesting, right? Because we keep talking about substrate independence. So this is Aubrey de Grey. You guys know who this guy is? Have you seen him before? He gets in trouble. They're like, oh, he's a sexual harasser. Or something. I'm pretty sure that's a lousy charge, but we'll wait and see. You know, it's been going on for a year. But he's a transhumanist who's been working on ending aging. And, you know, that's a thing where aging kind of affects everybody. Everyone seems to die, most of the people I know. And as you get older, on your way to death, things just get horrible, right? Like your DNA starts to fall apart. And then you lose your memories. So I mean, I'm not super into like immortality completely, but the idea of maybe living as well as you can until you die without forgetting who you are seems decent to me.
That's one way to eliminate suffering. The other way is Buddha's way. Like Buddha's way is much wiser than just this is like chasing the dragon of immortality.
Right. Go into that. What do you think? So, because these guys seem so sad. They're like so scared of death, right?
Right.
Yeah, the last say immortality sounds great, but you're right. Everybody I've seen who's tried to live forever is a miserable prick. Everybody seems to be okay with it. Like,
fucking sexies, man. I'm telling you.
Plus, death is the food for life. You know, decomposition is that we won't have any plants. So I mean, it's very then they'll find another way to cure that. I mean, it's the same. It's this horrible kind of scientific thinking of like, we've got too many frogs, so we'll bring in some dogs to eat them. Then we'll bring in eagles to eat the dogs, and then you're constantly like bringing in new animals to kill the other animals you brought in, and it becomes Australia.
Right, but isn't this all
in here? Something about Icarus.
Keenan's comment here. If you get a speeding ticket next time, tell them to take you to jail right now. If it's just a speeding ticket, why waste my time? If you get one ticket instead of 20 days, is it worth your time? I don't know. I won't try that personally, but if someone does, I'll tell your story.
I got some stories I could go there about that, but I'm not going to stay on target.
In fairness for this guy, though, does he know what his hourly rate is? Like, how much does he earn in an hour? Just think of the opportunity cost.
Yeah,
20 hours in jail versus 20 hours, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I used to ride around.
I feel sexually harassed just by his beard, just by its length a little bit.
It's pretty good. I love it. You know, the Methuselah
makes me a little uncomfortable.
So the Methuselah Foundation wants to make 90 the new 50 by 2030. Anybody ever heard of Methuselah from the Bible?
Yeah.
What do you think about Methuselah?
I don't have enough to give you anything interesting, but
I mean, a much better approach to this is just to stop them spraying us with like heavy metals and poisoning the water.
Whoa! Give me what I got. You know?
Trust the science, please.
His death shall send, or man the javelin, or death of sword. Methuselah, a biblical patriarch and figure in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He had the longest lifespan of any of those given in the Bible, dying at 969. Decent, according to the Book of Genesis. Son of Enoch.
My biblical namesake Seth actually had a relatively short life. He died at 450.
No. Well, if you get to like 450 though, that's fine.
So what was it like having your dad just like ascend and transfigure? You know,
right?
Wasn't Enoch taken up? You're saying this is his son?
Yeah, he probably just watched his dad go off, and he's like, "All right, I'm not going to die, but you go on and die for me. I want to see you die from up there." And then also his grandson Noah, who is 700, so he did well. But
I feel like what we were discussing before is like a lot of it just kind of comes down to I don't know, this has kind of become my shtick because it's like I see it reoccur so much, but it's just this place where like technology, especially from the technocrats, people who are really well versed in technology, whether that's coding or whatever, taking that way of relating to this affects this, and like the syntax that's involved in that and applying it to biology as though it was just like they were the same thing. And so like that lack of discrimination I see as one of the more problematic phenomenons in our world today. So it's like a lot of the stuff with the pandemic where I see where the problem is in our way of approaching it is just very like technology based, like it's our savior. That's what it looks like to me. Like it's like if there's a nature of the religion, it's really worshiping like what we can do with technology, what we can fix with technology. And a lot of things are like you just have to stop what you're doing. Like when you look at some of the terrible shit that's happening in the world, it's like it's like I'm not saying for everything, I'm saying a lot of stuff out there. It's like just stop. But it's like people can't do that, so they just like, well, what can I do? It's like, well, you recycle, and I don't know, do your part,
Oh, I know. It's that we got to do
stop
something.
And you collaborate and listen.
If something makes something worse, but you can signal that to people, like signaling theory really opened my eyes to how stupid us meatbag people are. Like for a lot of the COVID stuff, some of the
just use like a robot pejorative for humans? You just called us all meatbags? All right, keep going.
Yeah, meatbags. I like it.
All right.
But like how some things were good, but some things weren't so good. But you could signal socially how much you're protecting everybody by doing them. Those bad things that didn't work but signaled well took off like wildfire. Meanwhile, like super effective stuff didn't. Like I think was it New York State where they basically forced old people to sit in a room together and cough on each other. Basically, that was their program.
And Sweden.
And for a period of time, they sent known COVID positive people into nursing homes. And for the rhetoric that was being given and how we have to protect the most vulnerable, that was supposed to be what it was all about, that was a very hypocritical move. Absolutely.
Well, it's like it's socially signaled great. We're helping old people, so we're doing something. But you're right. It's if you really wanted to help old people, isolate old people, and everybody else do what you do.
There was an apology for that, but it falls short because it's just like another example of consequences dictating your course of action. A little tool reference. It's only wrong if you get caught.
I'm sorry, guys.
Here's the fountain of eternal life in Cleveland, Ohio, symbolizing a man rising above, reaching upwards towards God, towards peace. All of these, it looks more like he's on fire to me, but I don't know. Like the earth is trying to kill him, maybe, and he's trying to.
What about the one at the clock tower, Andreas? The one with the family gripping each other? That was for the nuclear bomb, right?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? That's my favorite sculpture in Santa Cruz. Is this family like holding each other tight, all looking straight up at the sky, and it's across from the Vets Hall. It's near the Vets Hall. So,
the one that's painted over with the Dancing Reaper one. This one?
No, the one that's by the clock tower. You should type. You
almost make it sound like those ruins of Pompeii when you were seeing the people that got caught up by ash.
Yeah,
or was that the artist's intent to make it kind of vibe that same way?
Yeah, put the statue there with it if you're gonna do it. Yeah. Santa Cruz. Yeah, you have it. It should be there. Oh, there it is. I see it. Second to the right.
That's good.
That one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, hold on. Yeah, all these like very future reset kind of culture. Look at that, right?
Dude, that totally looks like the stuff they were founding in Pompeii from Mount Vesuvius. I like that artist. It's good.
I was thinking a lot. I saw my brother earlier today about Magnum PI because I was saying,
nuns don't work on Sunday.
I thought, yeah, exactly. I was like, "Have you seen that yet?" He's like, "It was made before my time." Like, yeah, but you're almost old enough. Like, you should be watching. He's like a retired non-vet. There's lots to relate to.
A rite of passage.
Yeah, but like the whole thing with the weather, because we're in California, and when you go to the east, you've got like seasons. You prepare for things. You prepare for the winters during the fall, and if you don't, then you die. So you have to live for today. But in California, there's no seasons, but we have acts of God, just these crazy storms, earthquakes, fires that are not really something you can put on your calendar, but there's just something that God does to shake your life up and to make you, grateful. It's kind of different, but it's similar in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that. Vancouver Island was the same way. It's like the Pacific Northwest, no seasons. Everything is always 14 degrees and cloudy. The part I didn't like about it is there was never any urgency to get things done. The one thing I like about like Toronto now is with winter coming, I always have to like, oh, winter's almost here. I better go and do this now before it's too late. And you guys just don't have that foot in the ass to help you complete things. I'm surprised how California is so productive. I really am.
How about in the South Pacific, where you just have hurricane season and they don't have any infrastructure that can survive the hurricane? They have thatch huts, and if the hurricane comes directly at your island, just everybody dies unless you just randomly live and get to swim away or something. I don't know if you ever read South Sea Tales by Jack London. Is like a great recounting of that, because if people are so happy and chill, and there's like British fleet members there, and they're like panicking, they're looking at the barometer, they're like trying to fortify their house and stuff, and the island people are just like, you're gonna get flung in the air and either you're gonna land in the water or live or die, like whatever.
Nothing you can do about it.
I liked it in Bermuda. All the roofs have these weird step pyramid roofs, and it's so the water can be collected. So you basically have a huge reservoir underneath your house, and you can often make it if you get down to the stone area. So there are people who've figured out how to survive. It's cool. They have these weird accents in Bermuda. They sound kind of like Dutch people or Vikings or something. It's very I
kept on seeing pictures of rooftops in God, where is that? Greece, where I was like, why are their roofs all detached from their houses? Like all the houses in certain areas are just like their roofs aren't actually connected, and they have like stuff in between to like keep them there. And it turns out it's because they get a tax break if their house is under renovation. And one very clear way to determine that is that the roof is not attached. So it's just like this kind of loophole. So like everybody did it. Of that certain income bracket, they're just like, oh yeah, no, we're renovating.
Oh my god,
it's an interesting protest.
That's libertarian wet dream right there. You're touching my house, government.
So let's get canceled really quickly. I'm going to go into the scientific abstract. Why do evolutionary researchers believe about human psychology and behavior? It turns out about 3/4 of participants believe that population differences from dissimilar ancestral ecological environments. In other words, and within person differences across the menstrual cycle. So in other words, having different genetic kinds of hominids as their previous ancestral line coming, and that we're the 3/4 of the scientific participants believe that we come from multiple kinds of hominids, which we've talked about before, Denisovin and Denisovin.
This is the theory that we bred the Neanderthals out of existence,
or we've all bred together, you know, so that we
right. They coexisted. Isn't that kind of the status quo in terms of evolutionary biology now? They're saying that there is all these coexistent lines of hominoids.
We're now at the point, I think, where it's socially acceptable to say this, but a couple of years ago, this was considered like all-out offensive racism, that we're all bred together, that we're all like one people, which is really interesting how they did that.
Are they mixing it up with back in the 1800s when they were talking about like the Mongoloids and the other types of people, and they were just basically saying how like British people were the best?
That might be Eurocentricity in the 19th century might be the excuse they used, but it's interesting when you look at gene flow, because we have so many examples of it in all these different kinds of species, and now we can find it in humans as well. So it's kind of an interesting idea that we didn't reach some sort of apex. We're all together homogenizing to have different things happening simultaneously at different points, and sometimes the Neanderthal will come out, maybe if it's a viable or useful thing. Other times it gets suppressed.
Totally.
Which one's dominant? Which one's recessive? I can't believe people are mixing that up with phrenology. Jeez.
Yeah, what's that word again? Phrenology. So
phrenology. That was like where they were measuring skull shapes. Yeah, like this stuff.
Yeah, but so isn't that also kind of interesting when you do like Homo capensis? Are we allowed to do capensis yet? Like, are they showing the capensis skull? Where is that at? You know, there's this whole thing with elongated skulls. There's some people that didn't just shape their skulls. That's
right.
The elite
they know that.
Mimic it, right?
We've discussed this. So, like, so we know now that there are people who literally strap boards to their heads, have boards strapped to their heads. Developmentally, you can reshape a skull. But the thing is that the inner cavity of, I'm no expert, so if someone wants to debunk me, you're welcome to it. But from my understanding, that, you know, there's these skulls that they find that and even older times, they can find that the cavity remains the same size. So if you're going to look inside the skull, it's not that their brain is bigger, it's actually built up. Like, I don't know what the terminology is, but I guess it's like calcification or something, like it just builds. And so you have these elongated skulls. But the thing is that there are skulls that they have found. I don't think they've ever found a single mummy or a skull in any pyramids for the most part. in Egypt or elsewhere, right? Like all the pharaohs were in Valley of the Kings or whatever. We found empty sarcophaguses or whatever. But anyway, point being, I believe it was in South America, they have found skulls with their inner cavity, like those kind of pumpkin shaped ones where it's like it fills the whole thing. It's like they had a different inner thing, and we don't even know like what their perceptual experience was, these different types of hominoids. It's crazy.
Right. And so it's an interesting thing because the likelihood that we have gene flow between Homo capensis, that Homo capensis exists, and that they're related to some humans that exist today is just as likely as it is, you know, as probable as we know that we are of Neanderthal blood. There's tons of genetic evidence that a lot of Eurasia has Neanderthal and Denisovan, and that Floriensis and, you know, Micronesia.
So what's the bad part about this then? Like, you're saying these things, I just don't understand what the emotional revulsion is that you're not
exactly. I think you got it though, is in the 19th century someone was like, Europeans were the best. What's it called? The kinsman or whatever, the fake British human discovery, like the Kingsman man, what's it called? The Piltdown man. This is where it all
yeah, totally.
So what they did was they said, okay, it looks like, you know, this guy in South Africa has found a skull, which would prove that humans were evolving in Africa. And we don't like that. So what we'll do is we'll make a fake skull in Britain and say, actually, humans evolved in Britain from monkeys. And we have a half monkey looking skull here with some monkey teeth that eventually were found out to actually be from monkeys. And the whole thing was fake, but they hid it for like 100 years. And so for a long time, people continued to believe that the Piltdown man was real and that man had evolved in England. And this was also because I think the Germans had the Neanderthal in the Neander's Valley. And so they thought, hey, if the Germans are discovering somebody, they're going to have won the evolution race, right? So we need to have discovered something first.
Dude, what was the interview with this woman on, I think it was years ago, on before the Hitler apologist documentary from Red Ice. But there's a Red Ice interview with a woman who worked for the World Bank for I think 10 to 15 years. You might be able to find this. And it's a longer interview, but in the middle of it, she's mainly talking about just corruption in the World Bank. But at one point, she describes a meeting with like this is all whatever. Who the fuck knows? But she describes this meeting where somebody walked in. He had like this elaborate headdress, and he's like one of the richest people in the world. He's like paid to be out of Forbes list or whatever. Who knows? And she says he takes off his headdress, and the guy's got an elongated skull. And she said it was all logic. No, like there's no like indication of empathy or any, you know, it was very like almost like Spock or something, you know, or you know, whatever.
God, that would be horrible.
And she was like saying that these are some of the most influential people in the world, have these elongated skulls, and no one ever freaking sees them unless if you have like some special meeting with them and you're in, you know, a World Bank position or whatever. I don't know, but she could be completely full of crap. But I found it interesting that like that wasn't what her interview was about, from what I remember. I mean, albeit I watched it years ago, but I remember it just being about corruption. And then at one point, she's just like, "Oh yeah, elongated." Ooh, that's.
You never know. I mean, it's possible. I mean, we're all descendant from, you know, all sorts of things. And so I think gene flow is interesting. It doesn't really mean, I guess that's the thing, is if someone thought that the Piltdown man had to have come from England, and that's like the most important thing. But likely it's different. Likely it looks more like the Lemuria thing, because you have Blavatsky at the same time as Darwin on a boat, right? And she's going around looking at the theory of evolution, and she's saying,
are you saying Blavatsky knew Darwin personally? I never heard that.
I'm saying that they were, if not met, they're like ships in the night, because they did both do their boat trips at the same time. And so it's plausible that they never met, but still they were definitely in similar theosophic societies. And there's definite evidence that Blavatsky knew Edmonton, Darwin, right? Edmonston.
You know, if you talk to theosophists and Thelemites, they like never get along and they kind of hate each other for the most part. There's like a whole like charge there, and I've made the mistake. If you go into one, actually with the Thelemites, you can bring up Blavatsky, but if you bring up Crowley to the Theosophist, man, they fucking lose their shit.
You guys know about John Edmondson, right? John Edmondson was the like gay lover, but also, I mean, maybe not. It might have been that Darwin was just in love with him, but he constantly writes love letters to this guy. But he's a Guyana taxidermist who he based a lot of his research on and was involved in several occult groups. He was the guy who lived in the bungalow, and Darwin built his bungalow next to his so he could. But a lot of his work really was inspired by Edmondson.
Hey, can you look up human? I think it's called something like human emotion. No, emotions in animals and humans. Emotions in Animals and Humans by Darwin. No one ever talks about this book.
Is this the one that they talk
The
about how
expression of
animals
emotion.
don't have emotions, and this is why factory farming kind of became a thing?
I don't think so. Maybe at some point there's something old fashioned that gets dropped, but there's things that I remember taking from this book where he actually speaks to, you know, emotional development as an evolutionary imperative. Because as much as he might speak to competition, survival of the fit, which people often say is survival of the fittest, like that you have to be fit to survive. That makes sense. But he speaks to cooperation. So that's part of the book is like actually caring, and people caring about each other actually helps for survival because you know people also depend on each other. So I think it's kind of funny
part, isn't it?
What's that?
That's the fitness aspect of it, isn't?
Right. Well, the thing is that we talk about Origin of Species, where we see survival of the fit and his trip on the Galapagos Islands and all this stuff. But then you look at some of his other writings, and you'll find little tidbits that just don't reflect the way that people treat Darwinism as more of like, you know, as more of like a religion than the science that it should be, which was
like
in its stage of development.
Like
and you have to have
Ayn
some sympathy for
like it's Thunderdome all the time and the strong survive.
Yeah, it's
cooperation.
Yeah, I mean, I read this book years ago, and it kind of like there was points in it where I was like, wow, this is not what I was taught in school about Darwin's trip. And so they took certain things and left certain other things out, and it's funny because it was supposed to be one of the rationalizations for Nazism. No, is that what kind of where? It was it not? I mean, wasn't
so crazy weirdos misinterpret things for their own ends.
Social so I wouldn't blame social Darwinism goes back to, you know, I think again, the enclosure movement in the industrial period, so the managerial period of industrial revolution. So they were like, hey, we're rising to the top. This is a scientific religion that will make it acceptable for what we're doing here. And it was getting pretty crazy at the point that Darwin emerged, and then it got worse. And then so when Marx and a lot of them were talking, they were saying, hey, but it is kind of nuts when everyone's living in a pile of syphilis, and you know, people have kids are 6 years old are working and going bald from carrying crates on their heads. So yeah, expressions of the emotions, I think that's the part that is in managerial theory. They always say, how do we get them to work together? 6 is the perfect number, right? So there's all these weird kind of occult aspects to managerial theory that emerge at this time. How do we get 5 to 7 to work together on a team? How do we have these teams associated with each other? 5 teams working on 5 projects at the same time. Let's do a 9-month project. Why are they doing 9-month gestation periods for projects a lot of the time? Managerial theory gets really occult into the late 19th century.
Well, that's why I always liked Susan Blackmore and what's his face when they were talking about memetics. The idea of a non-genetic way of passing information. Wasn't that what made, and the theory was that's what made humans the dominant species, is that we developed language. And so by language, you know, how horses, you're born and 3 minutes later you're able to run. Humans were actually able to teach these things. So we were able to birth our children smaller heads, so smaller cavities, so we could gestate them earlier, so humans could remain faster, more mobile, more social. And we figured out that 5 of us together could beat the strongest thing. And so by being able to coordinate with language, it's what our fitness evolution was.
See, that's exactly what Blavatsky says. So the idea that there are like a dozen or so different kinds of variances in DNA, that doesn't change that they're all part of the same race happening. They're racing, ascending at the same time. And that we've hit maybe the 5th race. We were at the 4th, was the Atlantean period. But we're all simultaneously part of this human condition. We are spirit having the human experience, as Teilhard Chardin says. And so we confuse that with the phrenology saying, oh, well, we're different kinds of humans, but really we're all living at the same period. And we are sharing, you know, you can learn from culture. So mimetic is stronger than people realize, and it grows parts of your brain.
Oh, wait till you start getting into timetics, the technology mimetics. How cybernetics are going to change how we work, which makes sense. I mean, sunglasses, like eyeglasses are technically a timetic.
How do I type this? Timetic.
It's just like memes, but temes, timetics, or teams, yeah.
Timetics. It wants to look for telematics. Timetics. Let's go there.
Essentially, any technology that you can use to make changes in your environment outside of genetics and outside of like communication of ideas. So like eyeglasses are an example of that. Musical instruments. I mean, what is the old Greek thing? Every invention is just an extension of the human body, right? So all of our inventions.
Yeah.
Are they an extension of our body, or are they a replication that we use to, to act as an extender? I don't know.
I'm not that good a writer. I couldn't tell
Right.
you.
No, it's just it might sound like semantics or whatever, but it's like we're talking about two different things, and then we're saying this is an extension of this other thing. Is it?
Well, like I think of a car, for example, as extending our ability to run distances.
Yeah.
But we're not. You're not running. You're all of a sudden not. I know you're not walking. You're not running. But that's what it's just like. I walked across Spain, right? And I also drove across Spain. Very different things. Like you walk across Spain, you meet people. You walking takes like a month. It's a different thing. You don't get the same experience.
Well, it's a different thing. The one's more effective at moving from one position to another. You're right.
Yeah, but like they say, it's a completely different goal. My goal wasn't to like get from one point of Spain to the other point of Spain. It was to walk across. So if you're trying to see everything and absorb everything, you can't do it that way. You know?
But that's the thing, though,
yeah,
right?
I'm a stickler for that point of like that biology isn't technology, and I see it conflated like so much. I'm sorry if it's annoying, but yeah, yeah.
But that's the thing. What was that? It was argued about symbology, how things were necessitous. Like when you were a caveman, you had to walk if you wanted to get anywhere. And now we have an automobile, and so walking is no longer to get places. You're using it as like an aesthetic experience. You want to experience things. You want to meet people. So it's no longer
walking is also really good
biology is no longer serving its original purpose, but has developed a symbolic one afterwards. It's an interesting theory. I have no idea if it's right, but I just love to talk about it because you guys go off on the myths and the glyphs.
No, I mean, here's an example.
Lost.
This is in your, to the credit of Ryan. Here's the first Comcast bill ever negotiated with AI. So they went into OpenAI Chat GPT, asked it to save money on the bill, negotiated it to 120, did the whole thing, and just answered the questions in the live agent back and forth until it was negotiated.
Look at
so
that.
It was, yeah. So I mean, we're getting to the point now where like that could be useful. Getting rid of experiences you don't want to have, for sure. I think that's gonna be.
But imagine too, what happens to like when you have an ability to negotiate now, AI can do it for you and better than you ever will. But we still have that instinct to communicate and persuade. So what purpose is that going to serve now that we've kind of
on the eve of a cashless society? So we're about to hit a point where it doesn't matter, and it's except that it does, because the whole system has to run as efficiently as possible. And that level, every deal will have to be negotiated by AI to be as efficient as possible, to have as little entropy as possible. And we're leaving the industrial and the technological revolution, and we're moving into the services revolution, where we can get something to each other, get people what they need as quickly as possible with as little entropy.
Yeah, it was weird in Sweden. My last trip, it was like there's places that they just would not accept cash. You know, you gotta pay with card, and it's just it's a strange deal. I haven't seen that in the U.S. yet. Somebody wants.
Wasn't it illegal? No. I know in Canada it was supposed to be illegal, at least in Canada. That's why they write is legal tender. Like
right.
You have to accept it.
If COVID, if they want to say that you can't use money, they'll do it.
That's right.
It could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Which I did see in California several times from places that they just wouldn't accept cash for a period of time because they were concerned because there was this kind of thing where it's like bacteria and viruses just were like indistinguishable, or just like
yeah. Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, is that we're hitting into a point where there will be more and more synthetic, technology that is moving around, that's being used for data informatics or used to mutate people. It could be used for weaponry, but it could be used by corporations just to advertise. So we don't know. I mean, it is kind of a scary time. We don't know what's going to come with the technology.
Cyberpunk, isn't it, though?
Super cyberpunk.
It's too bad, 'cause I like the genre, but I don't want to live in Kowloon Walled City.
Before we get too deep into like the depths of like that and Twittergate and CIA and cyberpunk connections to the government control, I mean, still harping on like death and Ray Kurzweil, right? And this idea of life extension. So we're hitting this point where you're going to be able to upload data into a substrate independent mind, but it's maybe like the car. Maybe it won't be able to emotionally feel the parts of the data, and so it's still going to need some sort of human processing. And also, where do you end up and what's the cost? Like, what if you end up being the mind behind the car to drive for somebody? You know, it uses an actual human sense, because you're like, what's the best? We can't be sure which, so it becomes a trolley problem for you for the rest of your life, or for infinity.
A copy of your consciousness, and it just becomes trapped in the car because it's the best way to drive the car. But then you essentially have like a human consciousness copy that's sentient, but it's like enslaved to operating the toaster and nothing else, just to make sure the toast is perfect every time.
Right. I mean, like the idea of these analog memories being higher resolution and therefore more useful, that is in Blade Runner. That idea that if you create a scenario for the memories to be stored, then the AI will work better, right? And they've been proving this with OpenCog. They've done this where they've actually given priority-driven pattern recognition systems, you know, identities, and how that actually helps them to say, oh yeah, I'm from this part of the map, but I live over in this part of the map now because I need to gather things from there. And so,
well, I mean, I think it's one of those things that it's going to be a giant experiment. Some people are going to side one side. Some people are going to side, like, everybody's going to pick their lane and then give it 1,000 generations, and one of them will win and the other one will die off. Or
what are the two sides?
Well, that case of like, do you go Butlerian Jihad or do you go full Blade Runner? I can't really think of like a better analogy. I'm sure there's more sophisticated and better ways to put it. I'm just using that as an example, right?
Would you go, Ryan? Would you AI upload your mind if you were like?
I think I would Butlerian Jihad myself.
You'd rather like live your
I just
life and
enjoy the human process for what it is. I don't have higher hopes of like, do I want to live forever? I'd get bored. I'd do stupid things. And every time I've seen, like, I keep mentioning Icarus, man, but every time I see somebody fly to the sun, we get like an FTX scam or something. Another Bernie Madoff hit in the world.
Also, it's exciting to get eaten by worms and turn into a tree and other stuff, you know, have other experiences.
That's true.
Not a dull moment.
I wonder, you know, because it's like that is going to be a lot of people that are going to start uploading themselves. That's going to be, you know, one way or another. There's already been, I saw one earlier, an Axis of the Ordinary Animal. I'll be able to find it. But some girl who she uploaded all of her old memories. It was like talking to her inner child. There's a number of these GPTs that are pretty useful at creating something that we can interact with, but just wondering what it's like to be that.
Can I ask you a question just about the previous topic? I'm going to anyhow, but is it possible for us to create an experience that isn't a subset of the larger experience that we knew before? Can we create a new experience for our consciousness that is more vast and has more potential? Or the more that we kind of like the simulation problem, the more that you go into a simulation and a simulation, aren't you just it's just a subset? Each one is small.
I'm
like you can't build a scale model of the universe, you know.
I'm keen on that. I think the idea of trying to emulate what you had before is hell or some kind of terrible thing. But if you try to like adapt, you might find that there's something amazing in the future that's a different thing than life itself, right? It wouldn't be life, but it would be something interesting.
I mean, I don't know anything about quantum computing, but is it feasible to create something within existence that's broader than existence?
I mean, not so it would. Okay, so the thing is, it would still be in existence, but what it would be is that you're moving out of your meat bag, and so you might be into something that has higher sensorial awareness, something that can capture and process more of the data of the existence that you're experiencing.
Is it the same thing as like the vinyl record? Is higher resolution necessarily better, or will we have sentimentality for suffering and
so what I was thinking earlier with it is like magnetic tape. So magnetic tape is the greatest. Let's look for like music, because it sounds better than anything, but also even though the resolution isn't necessarily perfect at 24-bit, you can't tell. And when there is a problem, because it's iron oxide, the iron falls on its side like a feather, so it makes these beautiful patterns that you're hearing, which is some people actually go out of their way to make music with tape machines because it goes but you don't have to have it like that. It's just there's something about tape that it's not a jagged straight modified sine wave, which is this weird, you know, this is a curve, a nice curve. It's a pure sine wave. This is a modified sine wave, right?
That's what I was saying square waves earlier. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful with the certain kinds of waves. I think it probably affects your mind. Speaking of which,
the other thing, are we even capable if you had a higher resolution thing too?
Not your, so your meat bag isn't, but of course your computer is, and like different kinds of systems are.
If you're dealing with it, it still has to interface with you. So like if you're not speaking the same language, it could tell me all kinds of quantum stuff. I won't know what it is. I won't even be able to see it.
Unless we're, so the thing is, parts of your mind start to be, this is the part of your brain that goes bad. They start to study people that have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're like, okay, well, this part of the brain, so that's where we're storing language. Let's attach this network that can speak several different languages and respond appropriately. We'll study his brain or her brain to be able to connect to the thing. So
even if you have a higher resolution experience to take in, without your meat bag, you're not going to have anything to produce actual like hormones, like dopamine, to produce the dopamine or anything like that. So you're going to have like synthetic dopamine. You're going to be like RoboCop 2, where you have to, they have to include a biological part so it can experience the drug sensation. So it's like you might have more to experience, but you won't. Your emotions, your reaction to it will be synthesized and like a palpum set of the real thing.
But that's the thing too. I just don't think we're capable of higher resolution. Like we're built for fitness, right? Evolved for fitness. And if fitness was a linear function attached with reality, there's actually a great Evo Psych paper on this where saying humans aren't built to see objective reality. Like water. If you think more water is good, and that was our survival thing, that'd be great. But you got too little water where you drown, or where you dehydrate, and too much water where you drown. So we're kind of evolved for like a middle zone, like not a macro, not a micro, but a mesosphere. And so the idea then is that's why we can only see like a specific band of light, because I
don't know what word to use, but I'm just gonna use mesosphere. Okay.
Yeah. It just means like a middle area. There's like a small band inside of all the things that exist in reality that we are evolved to perceive, because those helped us from a fitness perspective. And so if you start bombarding us with a whole bunch of information that we're not capable of, it'd be like blasting ultraviolet lights in our face. We're just going to get cancer.
So, I mean, maybe, but the other way is you look at it like we invented telescopes because we don't have eagle eyes. So we made better eyes than eagles. And we invented, synthetic clothes because leathers weren't good enough for certain circumstances that we wore of hides because other animals. So we've surpassed nature because
but you don't want to.
Like,
you don't want to look
at
a beautiful
David's thing about specific language. We refine nature. Even when we see things out in the X-ray, it still converts them to that light pattern we can see to bring it back to us.
You still have a preference to observe things firsthand, though. Like you can see something further away with the telescope, but you're going to enjoy the experience more if you're actually seeing it with your naked eye.
Right. You keep talking about language, and like I talk about this a lot, but the idea that the earliest development of language is not just coincident with mathematics, it's completely unified with math. And our relationship to math, what the hell was that? Because we see it indicated in all the ancient text, but it's like, I think it's misleading when people say, when speaking to gematria, that the numbers are correspondent to the letters, because there was no others. The letters themselves were numbers. They are numbers. Like Sephiro means numeration, right? So there's this Kabbalistic idea that the same way that things come into form with organisms, there's also things come into form through speech, through what language essentially is, because in our processing of language, it relates to a breaking down and a type of troubleshooting. So in other words, like you develop eyes out of a primordial desire to see, and the same follows for all the senses. So it's like when it comes to whatever it is senses we're lacking right now evolutionarily, like tying it back to Darwin, it's like whatever needs to emerge from what we've seen, it only emerges when on a very deep level we recognize the need for that new development. And so like, what does that take if it's a major leap? Like when we look at the dinosaurs didn't see us coming. We do not know the future of us. We have a lot of ideas around it or whatever, but like as a species, if we're acknowledging like our unity, like if we are one organism, then it's like, what are we creating? And so like my feeling is a lot of this like fixation on the technology end is really just kind of this desperation to manufacture our successor. And then meanwhile,
that's
like
interesting because Zohar in the Talmud and the Bible too. This idea that people don't go to heaven until the end of days when we've all prepared the kingdom of heaven, which kind of looks like a spaceship, the way it's described with the weird stones laid out and everything made out of metal.
See, I was almost saying you were making it sound like that yoga example used from earlier, the people that are getting away from things, using technology to hide from.
Wouldn't that be sweet? But what if it's the other way around entirely? The irony is just palpable. So really quickly also, Harrison Ford's Blade Runner with big science, Laurie Anderson. If you haven't seen the synchronicity, it's time. This is David Plate's sync.
There's some crazy parts in this one, man. There's the point at which she's doing the test. He's getting the test to see if he's a replicant. Harrison Ford's character, what is his name? Decker. And in just an example, they're doing like a theoretical scenario, and she goes, it's your birthday. And right afterwards, the timing of the album, Laurie Anderson literally goes, "Happy birthday." And so you'll have these things that occur that are just so specific that are really freaking weird, man. Something's happening there.
Dude, but you guys remember, I love to bring this up, but Mormon transhumanism never gets old to me. Have you heard of this? You know about this?
Never.
Okay, so what is Mormonism? Apparently, it's this religion from the 1800s founded by this cool guy, Joseph Smith. What is transhumanism? It's the idea to like live as well as possible, as long as possible, maybe forever. What is Mormon transhumanism? Takes the Mormon idea that humans should become gods and the transhumanist idea that we should use science and technology in ethical ways to improve our condition. So long story short, it is that we're going to build the Avatar Akashic record machine that's going to take all of our ancestry.com or whatever is, owned by the Mormon Church or something. I think they just sold it, but you're going to get all your DNA and it's going to have all the memories of your ancestors. And then this is heaven. We're going to build heaven. It's going to be, unfortunately, probably Dell and Microsoft are going to be involved with the creation of heaven.
And then we'll end up with Kubrick's AI. not Spielberg's, not the family film version, but the horror film version.
Do I have any of the pictures from his book? Concept art? Let me just have concept art. There you go. Yeah, there you go. That was good. I want the ones with the legs, There you go. Like Kubrick he was like, I want to have the cars just driving 150 miles an hour into the mouths of women.
I think that's for pay. That's a Tower reference. Because pay is as the mouth, right? So like if you look at like the tower card in Crowley's deck, it has the mouth with the fire taking down the tower at the bottom, because the Hebrew letter pay that corresponds to that card means mouth. So then you'll notice even I think when they leave the city too, they also I believe exit through lips, through a mouth up in the sky. So it's like from both sides. It's I don't know. I feel like it's a Tower reference. This is a 2001 film, right? That was released prior to 9/11.
And Ron pictures Howard raping you. It's just like the worst possible thing.
It's him dancing on Kubrick's grave. I swear. Like having seen all the screenplay proposals in the archives, and all these notes from Kubrick on what he didn't want, and it's like you can just see Spielberg just like whatever. I mean, anybody who says exactly that. What are you gonna do about it? You're dead now.
Here's the notes. Here I've turned the toll booths into a series of suspension bridges that emphasize their sexual nature. Okay, so don't worry, we're not just exaggerating Kubrick for you there.
Right.
Just like,
yeah. The notes are crazy. So basically, just you probably could say the premise at this point, Andreas. What's the original conception of AI? What Kubrick was actually working with, distinct from
the Pinocchio myth and the idea of like self-realization, but like
Pinocchio's is all over the thing. So Kubrick was literally obsessed with Pinocchio. Right. I was told this and I thought it was an exaggeration. No, that dude was obsessed with Pinocchio. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio took 15 years to produce. So I just got curious at what the new Disney 2022 Pinocchio that they came out with at the same year.
That's an interesting point.
It took like a month. They did that movie in like a month, and then they did the other ones 15 freaking years, man.
Do you think that Del Toro, it's like he loves Kubrick? Do you think? I didn't even think about.
Oh, he must know that. He has to know that. That's like a huge thing. So, like when you watch AI, you can see those elements. But the thing is that the whole premise was they went after the AI of the future after. Whatever, everything that's covered in water, including the two towers, which we see in the film, is that they take the DNA of the CEOs and the politicians and everybody that in their eyes, looking at our internet history, what destroyed the planet. So everything's recorded. And so that AI then punishes the CEOs and the politicians with a custom, like tailored hell. So, and based on the things that we've said about our beliefs all across the internet. So it's all just AI hell where they're just,
Right.
and so the only reason in the original conception why they allowed the mother to have that special day, the day that's supposed to be like an eternity with the child, is out of punishment because she rejected the child. So it's like, it's not a family movie.
Rocco's Basilisk is the punishment. It's like, if you don't help AI emerge, then AI will punish you with that, as stated.
Why is it the basilisk? It's a dog?
I don't know. I mean, this was Eliezer Yudowski proposed this at some point, kind of a psychological basilisk. But that Rocco's Basilisk is the term for what that is, like the idea of being attacked. The interesting thing, you saw the new Pinocchio already? Have you guys already seen this yet?
I haven't seen it.
Not. I know the story.
I won't ruin it for you, but this takes place in Italy during the fascist period, and so he's constantly looking at the bundled twigs and saying, "Oh, you could be a better fascist boy than just a man," like articulated very clearly, and with a lot of symbology referencing he being a bunch of wood put together in one way to another, and not wanting to be a bundle of sticks. So it does kind of feel like Kubrickian, and I wonder now more and more.
Right.
Is this out now? I want to see this.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I mean, good job, good guy Netflix having this out there.
Yeah, it's all stop motion carved, and so they've carved all the.
It's all done by hand, stop motion, but also they will do 3D printing of parts of the heads, so that they've modeled the faces, and they remove the head and replace the head every frame.
This better be freaky than the Adventures of Tom Sawyer claymation.
It's on that wave.
I loved that as a kid.
Dude, that is crazy. But there's the stranger, the mysterious stranger, that one segment of it with that freaking, oh my god, yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also interesting because you've got that. I mean, you've got this kid, or you got this devil character, the architect, right? And he's showing them bringing sand to life, breathing life into sand, right, into dirt, which is what God does, and then watching them suffer and die, right, in front of him for amusement. And it's just this idea that they see life and death happening in front of them, and it's just for the amusement of the gods. I mean, that is a crazy show.
So how much did that take from the actual story from Mark Twain, this mysterious stranger? Because I haven't read The Mysterious Stranger.
Yeah, I literally haven't either.
Yeah, there was no fence painting, nothing like that.
Okay. Oh, you read it. You read The Mysterious Stranger from Mark Twain.
Oh no, I didn't know that was from.
Is there? I don't think there is a Mark Twain novel called The Mysterious Stranger.
No, I think it's a short story within a book of short stories. I think so.
Although I'm finding new stuff of his all the time. I just found out about What Is Man like a year ago, so I wouldn't be surprised.
An unfinished novel from 1897 to 1908.
Standard.
I think I read everything he published, and I don't remember this one.
All right, okay. We'll have to look at The Mysterious Stranger. That makes sense. They make a stop motion.
Oh, I think what it was is that I had a book of Mark Twain stuff, and this was like a section of it. So I had a bunch of his stories, and maybe just had his unfinished story, I guess. But I didn't read it, like I said. So
yeah,
I'd like to read that. How do you get that?
Probably Gutenberg. I think most of his stuff's public domain now, isn't it?
Yeah, let me go to the Mysterious Stranger Mark Twain archive. And hopefully it's on archive.org, I would say. Mysterious Stranger Mark Twain archive.org, top of the page right there.
Oh, okay.
So, and we'll put that in the Discord.
I'm so ignorant on Mark Twain. I gotta wonder, was that like his last book? Is that why it's unfinished? Somebody didn't want that book to get out.
I don't know. I love Mark Twain.
Don't have your kids rate the sequel. Thank God.
Do you guys want to talk?
It's the greatest American novel. I mean, I read that every year, Huckleberry Finn, and there's like, especially about the American experience. You pick up new stuff every time. Like everything is like parables in there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to cover the Twitter files, Twittergate, and all the CIA, etc.?
If you want, it's kind of fun.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't tell. You're like, I don't know if I want to get my hands dirty. But it's fine. I like to do it. FBI says, in Twitter infiltration, business as usual. Slams conspiracy theorist says, this is just, come on, man. Come on. I think that's the.
What's the meme about this? It goes from it's not happening and you're a bigot to it's happening and we always liked it that way or something.
Right.
How adorable is this meme too? So I miss these, like, people think that communists can't meme, and I'm telling you, like, you ever just don't read enough newspapers like they do. But I don't know. So this idea that the entire world has been spied on is getting more and more clear. Reno mayor sued private investigator after discovering tracking device installed on vehicle. She was shocked to know that people knew where she was going. Right. So I don't know.
Right. Well, if they're a higher level, then they wouldn't need a tracking device. They just follow her phone, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like Snowden didn't warn us of this like a decade ago, so it's not like it should be surprising. Everybody should know.
And that was PRISM, and that was actually started under the Obama administration, but same shit is happening. Yeah.
I mean, we did talk about JFK yesterday, but
gotta love it.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's kind of funny because people were saying, "Oh man, they just admitted, or people just found out that," it's like, so that's the thing. How many people didn't know this already? The JFK's assassination was orchestrated by the.
Hey, how did they? I saw a thing on somebody was talking on Fox, Tucker or whatever. How did they find that out? Was there files released on this, or like what's the
right?
Yeah,
there was. He actually claimed to have a unidentified source familiar
Deep Throat
with
too.
Yeah, a CIA source. He said he had. Then he asked him if the CIA was directly involved in the assassination, and the quote he gave from his unnamed source is, "Yes, our entire country is a lie."
Yeah. I mean, this is on NPR. Sweeps.
I love it.
They kind of.
How crazy is it coming from Fox News? Because JFK was the baby face for liberal Democrats.
But again,
right? It's dude. I think it was in 2012. I don't know what I said last night, but I can't remember exactly. But I think it was around 2012 that it was 70% of Americans did not believe that Oswald acted alone. At the very least, there's just, did Oswald act alone? 70%. So looking at the way that things have gone now, practically exponentially, like in terms of distrust for the fucking government, when you ask them about JFK, so they're basically just catering to what is the largest demographic of the country ascribes to the idea that, that there's more to the JFK thing than what we thought,
Will life be better or worse?
That I can get behind.
This is funny to me because Patrick says a robot isn't creative, and robot comes from a Slavic word, so it means worker. And most of the word, like Croatian, Serbian, Czech, Russian, robota. So when I see it, it comes off as very classist by accident because it's saying workers aren't creative. That's all I got.
Which is weird because remember the initial journalism was always old factory workers creating their little newsletters.
Yeah,
and that's what started.
Human beings aren't creative either. We're receptive. We're just receiving signals. I mean, there's no evidence that we're creating things that are, I mean,
yeah. The workers who came to Wilhelm Reich, they weren't creative, and then they quit their jobs.
It's almost like if you need to be creative, you will be.
So the document, 23-page internal CIA memo, document the phone call and other details of Oswald's pre-assassination trip to Mexico City, a visit that's been subject to endless speculation. You have to remember this is around the same time that Trotsky was stabbed with an ice pick by the Soviets in Mexico City, was released years ago, but a few previously classified portions of the memo were finally released this week. A small portion of that, more than 13,173 newly unredacted documents, disclosed by the National Archives under a 1992 law requiring the release of all government material related to what was arguably the most shocking and consequential crime in American history. So what was the CIA hiding? Well, the long concealed section speaks for itself. The piece of information was produced from a telephone tap center, which was operate jointly with the Office of the President of Mexico. The memo reads, explaining how the CIA intercepts Oswald's calls to the Soviets. It is highly secret and not known to the Mexican security and the law enforcement officials who have their own center. In short, much of the newly disclosed JFK papers, the memo didn't contain any bombshells that prove an elaborate conspiracy to kill Kennedy. Instead, it shows that the CIA trying to hide how it does business, in this case, forging a relationship with foreign officials to operate a secret listening center in Mexico. So, well, that's a cute way to put that they were watching every move he made, every phone call he had, and they knew exactly what he was up to.
What was it that he moved from Russia in 1954 after? So he got court-martialed in the Marine Corps, Lee Harvey Oswald, and then he got put into reserves. So he got sent to the reserves, and then they sent him to Europe, and he ended up in Russia and had a Russian bride who he came back to Dallas with and was looking to quote unquote settle in Dallas. So I mean he
got honey potted.
Right.
Is that what happened? Yeah, because I wonder about it. I'm like, is that like a fucking James Bond type thing? And like, because I don't know what, and I'd like to relook at the testimony from Thornley about Discord, because how they mentioned Discordianism and all of that in there, because it's actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's the trial that was depicted in the film JFK that was later. Is that when Thornley got questioned? I don't know.
I know that like it's about 19 minutes of the trial for Oswald is about Thornley and his interaction with Discordianism. So it does come up. Like it's an important aspect.
I want to look at that again. It's been a while.
You guys think life will get better or worse if all, the vast majority of Americans understand that, we're being ruled over by these unelected intelligence agencies like Eisenhower warned about? Will they just take away the trimmings from us and just, like right now we kind of live like in a cell with wallpaper, like a nice wallpaper, where they just take down the wallpaper as a punishment if we all
I'm so jaded. I think people will turn up the volume on the new WAP video. I really do. I think, what was that, the Huxley thing? Like Huxley was right. I'm a full believer in that.
Huxley was right. Huxley's fucking right, dude. And so it's that thing of complacency. It's when you're so bombarded with information that you just like can't even take a real position anymore. Where you just, like
you're over it.
People have but at the same time, like I think that it might have like an unexpected value ultimately, only in the sense that when we're confronted with so much duality, like what happens developmentally when we act, if we should actually get to a point where we're not actually vulnerable to that, like polarization shit. And so like, does it take us just to go like all the way into it, like for us to recognize the mechanism behind it? I don't know.
Elon Musk keeps doing these polls, right? Should I do this? Should I do that? And obviously, I think
he already knows before he even starts the poll.
Right. Someone said, I was thinking that he was just trying to fish for those last minute votes from bot accounts. He already said he doesn't want it. So obviously the idea that he's just trying to use public opinion to make people feel better, that's the right way to do it. But I was saying, like, please stop using polls to decide your own choices. This is the same problem that led to the democratization of fascism and arbitrary emotional directives. I want to hear you make your own decisions for Twitter. So I don't know, because what I'm basically saying is damn the torpedoes and the Democrats and move ahead. And that's acceleration. And that might not be the right way to go, because that's the opposite. That's saying, hey, let's uninvolve public opinion, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's
wrong.
It's
kind of screams of hypocrisy, doesn't it, a bit? I mean, oh man.
So like you almost want to go back to an aristocracy.
Well, half of the I'm just thinking
was a mistake.
I'm thinking that Elon Musk is probably like not a benevolent dictator by any means, but at the same time, I don't think a mob is either. And this idea that democracy is taking away people's self-determination is probably, historically, it's been shown to be the worst way it goes. So you look at the British Commonwealth, right, and the Lord Protectorates, and they begged the king to come back because they were tired of just constantly being
well, they figured out the idea of splitting up the head of state and the head of politics, which America kind of went against, with the whole president being your guys' head of state as well, as opposed to like Canada, where we have.
And wasn't Brexit just like a total disaster for the same reasons?
I don't know. I got a soft spot for working class people, so when I saw them basically say it was like a spoiled ballot, same as like voting for Trump. It wasn't that they thought Trump was great,
right. Thank you. Okay. No, I got
like
you.
A spoiled ballot, and that's what I like. Where they're like, EU, eat it, and we'll deal with the consequences later.
Totally. No, that's the thing though. Is it very much screamed of the Trump thing. So like when I was in London, like right when that was really just happening, and we're like, oh shit, what did we do, And then it's like, and I'm like, you guys gonna make fun of our guy. I gotta say, this fucking Brexit thing you got going, I'm sorry, but you pretty much did the same thing.
Because there was like the quintiles. There are 5 quintiles, like economically, right? The top 2 were doing really great with the EU and London, and the bottom 3 not doing so hot. And it got so bad for them, they would rather flip the table. And what I'm hoping comes out of these like populist statements is that the upper quintiles realize that the lower quintiles have enough power to ruin everything. So you kind of have to bring everybody along with you. You can't just like, good for me, you guys deal with it on your own, you know?
It also wasn't just all flipping the table. Like there, in terms of trade and immigration, like
immigration was huge. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, the Britain was losing out. England was losing out, and so it wasn't just totally. I think Trump was more like the golden monkey wrench, where it's like, well, we all knew for 20 years that this guy sucks, but now suddenly we're going to try to warm up to him and just like
Boris, dude. What is up with the Richie Rich archetype?
Trump's a
but
globalist.
I'd rather have an aristocracy than a bureaucracy. I don't think anyone is satisfied with bureaucracy, and that's what the EU really is. It's like the high, and the WHO and the UN. It's just like the highest forms of bureaucracy, just mediocre people living mediocre lives and just taking out their frustration on all of us. I'd rather be ruled by satisfied people having hot tub boom boom parties like what's the guy that Italy used to have? No, the guy that Italy used to have that had the boom boom parties. That's what they call it.
Right,
I'd rather be ruled by happy people, people that are getting away with it.
But there's still arguments too for Trump, the same thing, that there was a very good, like my buddy in Colorado said it was, and he's like a very evangelical person, has an evangelical family. They're like, we don't care. He's got 4 years. There's so many Supreme Court justices that are set to retire in these next 4. Like, he can be a heathen all he wants to, but he's going to put Supreme Court justices that are conservative in, and that's why all my people are voting for him.
Yeah,
but I think everything, like, it has to have a mixture of
the same
spite
people
and self-interest, right?
That didn't work, by the way. The conservative justices are horrible. I mean, it didn't work.
Well, yeah.
Right. But they're conservative.
I'm just enjoying the ride.
Except for the one we already had. Clarence Thomas is the only. I mean, he's been there forever.
Dude, he's been awesome. I don't know what it was ever since, because I remember him back in, like, was it the 80s or the 90s when he had that whole Me Too thing against him?
Yeah, that was it.
And then it felt like this was like his chance for revenge, start bringing out the big gavel. I was like, you go.
It's just
sir.
Also he's been like a junior partner. You know what I mean? He's like 68 years old, and he's been like junior partner this whole time. Like, I'm not for term limits because term limits is anti-democratic. I mean, if we're supposed to have, but
they're supposed to not be swayed by public opinion. That's the whole point, right?
Right. They just turn into dinosaurs, though. There's got to be some point just in their age, not just how long they can serve, but it's like, hey, can we still have? Because you look at fucking, Nancy Pelosi up there, and these people. It's like, dude, how are you even functioning right now? And it's like,
how your house does that, though. I agree, because the house was supposed to be the public sentiment of
the house.
time.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm jumping around, but yeah,
supposed to be more of like a long-term thing.
I'm just saying that I'm seeing fucking dinosaurs everywhere.
If the House is supposed to represent the will of the people, the people in Nancy Pelosi's district keep wanting her, so that's their will.
I'm assuming they do. I don't know. You guys
do they?
You guys are really
no, I've met these people. I'm in California. Trust me, they love it.
I'm in California also. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this whole lesser of the evils thing. There's a quote I've been trying to track it down again. That's from on the campaign trail 72 from Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail, where he's talking about the lesser of two evils phenomenon as he's seen it in 1972, and he's just like, do we really? How many times, he literally says, are we going to have to go through this lesser of two evils crap before freaking they can give us a candidate that actually speaks for at least the majority of freaking of people who they're representing? And
it's just like, and that was what happened in 2016. Is like, I was so afraid. I got on the Trump train because I was so afraid of what Hillary Clinton would do. I never imagined she would close the economy. Or like warp speed, like gene therapies. I thought she might like start like a war with Russia, and it would be bad for our economy.
Exactly.
Why aren't Americans?
I never imagined she'd do anything as bad to our country as Trump did. So now we come up to 2020 again. 2024, and people are like, if we don't have Trump, we're going to get a Democrat. It's like, but we had Trump, and it's like at this point, it's like
it was cool up until COVID.
Everyone's cool up until they're challenged, and then you throw your wife in front of the gunman, and you were cool up until then.
Well put, sir.
Yeah, but now we come to 2024, and people are like, we have to have Trump, or we're going to get and it's like, no, you have to vote your ideals and lose. You win. You don't win at life and win in the eyes of God and in the eyes of your children and yourself by winning elections every 4 years. You win by representing your own ideals. So you vote for the person who's closest to your ideals, and you try to bump up their percentage if it's a libertarian or Green Party or whatever, and you deal with it. If you get a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter. We had Republicans, we had the Iraq War, we had the Patriot Act, we had COVID. You know what I mean? So it's like the idea that that there even is a lesser of the two evils between.
We just have to get people to become more evil, lesser.
I was going to say, that's such a Canadian way of voting. We always vote strategically because of our parliamentary system, But Americans, you guys kind of skipped all that to go for direct voting for a lot of this stuff. I just find it weird how people would still have strategic voting ideas. Like here it makes sense. Where I live right now is like a liberal stronghold, and we're just voting for an MP, and whoever has the most MPs decides on a prime minister. So if you wanted to vote and you didn't want to vote for liberal, then you would pick whoever the second most party was. Not so more so for principles, because like the less of any one party has a majority, the harder it is for them to get things done. So we always want to shoot for like minority governments. That way everybody kind of gets a say.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, didn't really work out so well. It's kind of like our version of Trump right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything, no matter what system you have, it can get co-opted, but there's no worse situation you can be in than having two choices. You're better with no choice than two choices, because two choices is really the illusion of choice. Once you have
but those choices aren't our choices. So I'm going to say something unpopular, and I'm sorry, Andreas, I have to do my thing. But like freaking Bernie Sanders called himself a sheepdog. And I think it was either the late 2015 or early 2016. And I saw it in an interview, and I had to stop and look it up because I was like, what is a political sheepdog? Political sheepdog is the person who riles everyone up for that party with the inherent intention to drop out, and none of the followers know it. And he said that about himself. And so like I caught that, man, early on, and I was like, what is that? You're calling yourself
part out loud.
Yeah, he said it. And the thing is that I felt with Bernie Sanders that the reason why he agreed to do what he did was because he was like, you're going to I can do nothing. I can continue to do my thing and try and push my healthcare bill, whatever. Or I can stand in front of a podium and say shit that's actually true to people and how they're getting screwed. I think that fucking for real happened. And most people on the right, as soon as they were exposed to what the actual bill was, what he was actually pitching, changed their views. My parents were total Trumpsters, changed their minds about Bernie because I forced my dad to freaking look at it. Because I was like, I know what you're hearing, but look at what it actually says. You will pay for, and how all that works. And like, so, the thing is like he got brought into a room with freaking Hillary and Obama, and they told him what was what at a certain point. And it was like, well, what do you do? And I think that he had good intentions in that way. I don't think it was just a complete scam, because I think he had to justify it in his mind, because when you look at his history,
trying to get Hillary Clinton elected by pretending you're going to be president would qualify as a scam, though.
If he showed up out of nowhere, it'd be one thing. When you look at the history of the guy's own drive, you can see that he really believes it. The thing is that he also
crazy old dude who thinks he's going to give people chocolate milk social.
He's also not smart, so you might be like projecting onto him.
He's hyper passionate about.
I'm saying, you notice,
remember that Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry wants to build bathrooms that you can't poop in. You know what I mean? I feel like that is Bernie.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The thing is if you look at what happened with Sweden. And his main pitch was to basically be more like Sweden. Thing is that
didn't even want to be more like Sweden.
That in a way, yeah. No, I got family in Sweden. I visited Sweden in the last few, not in the last 3 years, but the year before that and the year before that. And
Adam's living in Sweden.
And I gotta say, like, there's a million fucking things about Sweden that I don't hear in the conversation that are pretty important.
They have like 7 major parties. One of them is like a nationalist.
They have like 20 major parties, yeah. And of those parties, there's like 10 that are like their main parties. And so, and then they're veering in a certain right direction right now, and understandably so, given everything. But you got to keep in mind, there's the issue that it's like Sweden is like 80% forest. And people are more rural, have different ideas about all kinds of things. It's interesting to note that a lot of the views on immigration and stuff isn't so much from the people in the cities, which is just what you expect.
It's interesting how cities are less relevant than they were 20 years ago because of the internet. Like you can live with Amazon in rural, and
definitely not when it comes to voting. That's not the case.
Yeah, it's still city mouse, country mouse. I think there's not even a really left-right divide. It's like a rural urban one.
Do you think?
I don't think they want it to change. I don't think they want anything to change. I mean, they're getting away with the house. I mean, the last thing they want is for change. But what we need is a mental paradigm shift. And I think the first thing would be to get away from the lesser of two evils, because it's a fear-based. It's a fear-based voting system where you vote for the person that's not the person you're afraid of. where it should be like a faith-based voting system where you have faith in your ideals and your character, and you want to vote for somebody that represents that regardless of whether or not they win, just to like incrementally get in the right direction. I mean, look how China is taking over the world economy by incrementally over 1,000 years or 100 years, taking small footsteps. And we're like, every 4 years, we're going to make a great leap to exactly where we need to be. So we need these like larger than life lionized characters, you know, that it's just like mediocre people that were like, oh my God, Donald Trump is a God emperor riding on a T-Rex with a rifle. It's like, he's literally like a fat guy playing golf. Or like Hillary Clinton.
That was supposed to be hyperbolic. Did people actually really believe about the T-Rex and all that?
Oh my God. I know these. Yeah. These are my people. These are the people I'm trying to reach out to. Like
Twitter group, the T-Rex army, just as a funny LARP. But
I mean, it's because Tammy and the T-Rex, if you ever saw that on Cough Medicine, it's totally feasible that this could have happened, right? So you never know. Did you watch
They literally think he's selected by God and like has a direct relationship with JFK Jr. and Jesus Christ, and like they've conflated him into this like biblical character.
Sucks.
You know, like a T-Rex is a vulture that only
Children of Dune and was just rolling with it.
T-Rex is only a vulture-like thing that could eat dead like meat off the ground, and
like how it has human eyes.
And so a T-Rex could never stand straight up; it would always bow. So I always find that biblically interesting. But you set these goals that could last like 20 years or 40 years or more than 4, and you know it would take several people to complete something like that. And we can't do that anymore. People aren't thinking in like 20. I mean,
well, not with government, but you guys have privatized so much because you're America, right?
Well, you know, San Francisco, we want to build a railroad or something. You know,
everything.
But you know what I mean? Like government didn't build the railroad; the Rockefellers did. Yeah, so you guys do have long-term things. You've just moved it to the private sector and away from government.
And everything is nationalized. Everything successful has been like basically has been nationalized, just not, you know, in name.
I mean, like so Twitter, then you got Soros trying to work the other direction. He's saying we're going to get rid of police, have more corporatist security. Isn't that kind of what people want? That's libertarian.
It's like 5 years too late for this one. It's already been there, dude. Were you not here for the mostly peaceful protests? Jeez.
Late on the horse. I don't know. I dare to not even go into like go back to the radio host excited about third jab hospital with lungs full of blood clots. But guys, talk to your families and keep them safe. Yeah. Learn the true history of deep state spying as new Twitter files reveal Pentagon propaganda. You know, you saw some of this directly assisted. You know, they're working together. Isn't that kind of how it's supposed to work in like a transparent society? As the government works with the corporations to know what's going on, or where does your privacy? I mean, shouldn't you be able to just do things you want and not matter until someone gets hurt, and then they can just find out anything they want? Well, where's the level that you want?
You are talking sense again.
Where's the level you want them to know? As I'm just saying, you know.
Hey, I want to complete my thought on Bernie, because if I don't, then I'll walk away from the show regretting it. So I'll be thinking about it. So the thing is that it's like it doesn't matter what in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the fuck you think about Bernie. The point is that they fucking flipped the polls. I caught them doing it fucking twice. MSNBC and CNN, where they would take Hillary's fucking early results from the polls and Bernie's and fucking flip them, and they'd say from Harvard poll, you go to the Harvard website and you see they literally like exchange the numbers. Like that's one example. Shit went on. You could go through the whole thing, example after example. Why did that happen? Because fucking DNC is a brand, and he didn't fit their brand, and they were using him as a fucking sheepdog. And so when people talk about the disputed election, the whole fucking time I'm like, I know 2 elections in the United States that fucking we did not. It was a manipulated result, was because what's the fuck of having primaries if you're not going to get the actual choice of the people's candidate? Did you see Hillary try to fucking fill an auditorium to see Jay-Z?
I'm not making like an actual metaphor with Larry David.
There was like 6 people. So
there's like hardly anybody in the room to see fucking Jay-Z for free.
What the DNC should have done is just made Bernie their candidate, because it doesn't matter who it is. You just can't have 3 of them. That was
their arrogance. They can't fucking bring themselves to fucking do the obvious thing.
Works with 2 choices. If you add a 3rd choice, it's like then you would need AI to figure it out. Like the consequence tree is like inconceivable. With 2, it's simple. So it's just, you know, it's what the GOP tried to do with Trump. Bill Kristol came out as the rep for the GOP before the primaries and said that even if Trump wins the plurality of the vote, they still may select their own candidate because they're a sovereign body. So, but then eventually
they did how the GOP makes their money. They're consulting stuff. They make money by losing elections nobly. It's the craziest thing. Like I love watching like right-wing Twitter because like their takes on some of the stuff, they hate the GOP on right-wing Twitter.
Look what happened to who was the guy before Ron Paul? The guy who bought the TV time.
Oh, Perot? Ross Perot.
Ross Perot. Yeah, I mean,
I was just thinking.
They stole it from him, with the and then they made for Ron Paul. They made the Ron Paul rule for the debates that you have to be on the ballot in all 50 states instead of just 15 of them. So they'll change. They can't have a third person. It doesn't even matter. Literally to them, it doesn't.
It was so funny watching them.
They're going to figure out eventually. They will give you a Fetterman candidate because it's easier to deal with, and it doesn't matter who you have as long as there's only two of them.
I don't know this. Help me out. I only know a little bit. Did you guys really vote in Artard?
Which one?
Oh, yeah. I've only heard bits and pieces. Help a Canadian out here.
He is a Democrat.
You're still talking about Ross Perot. Oh, boy.
No, I mean, Ross Perot, we
talking about him like he's
Ross Perot, we didn't vote in. And
no, go ahead. Throw your vote away.
I want to play the video game about being Ross Perot where they're constantly trying to keep him from being president because it's got to be the funniest thing. They're like, oh, we put you into an ice cream truck. Oops, we accidentally took you into the basement of a See's candy place. Oops, we're about to miss the actual debate. Like they would lock him up and just keep him in the wrong room all the time.
He was awesome. He bought 30 hours of prime time on all three networks to explain the Federal Reserve.
That's the only way it's going to happen. Good job, Perot. We love you. All right, but
I thought you were going to show the Simpsons clip with the go ahead, throw your vote away with the aliens.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't have like a lot. I don't have a lot to say on Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman or U.S. Senator John Fetterman or whatever. I mean, it's like it is what it is.
Wait, you guys have lieutenant governors?
I guess in Pennsylvania.
There's more to say about Mehmet Oz and Trump backing Mehmet Oz. It's like despised in Pennsylvania. He's like the least.
Wait, Dr. Oz was Republican? What the hell?
Yeah, Trump forced Dr. Oz to go against Fetterman, and anybody else could have.
Yeah, and he's Turkish, so the connection.
America, you never cease to amaze me. So Trump nominated Dr. Oz to run as a Republican against the sloth from the Goonies.
Yep,
and lost.
That's exactly what happened. No, but
what's the name of the guy? What's the name of the not Farrakhan? What's the name of the dude in Turkey?
There would have been effectively no difference at all in the long term scheme of things if Oz was elected instead. It makes no difference.
Dude, I remember when it was like Rouge V went
neither
on
one of them represent
anybody's misogynist for 20 minutes. What the hell?
But he was in Oz was in the Turkish army, right? So there's a lot of
he's a double citizen with Turkey.
Yeah, but like he was in the Turkish army. It's not just that he was a citizen. He's like in the army. That's a political thing. I don't know. It seems kind of interesting that I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, looking at Pennsylvania has its own constitution that predates the United States. They have a bunch of weird rules which came up during the QAnon thing for some reason or other. They're like, oh yeah, Pennsylvania, they have their own way of doing their elections. It still matters. And they have their own federal constitution, federal court of Pennsylvania.
So what does the lieutenant governor do there? Because here a lieutenant governor is like the provincial the representation of royals for the province, kind of like our governor general is for the national. So but you guys don't have a regal thing. So what's the lieutenant governor for?
Lieutenant governor, vice governor. It probably runs well, this is in Canada specifically, or no, in other places as well. I don't know. United States lieutenant governors are usually second in command to state governor, and actual power held by lieutenant governor varies greatly from state to state.
I think it's probably just most likely to negate regime change when your actual governor gets busted in a scandal like Cuomo in New York.
Right.
Also, it's just like having a deputy premier. So for you, it's just a deputy.
It's like a break. It's like a break glass in case of emergency.
Vice governor.
Yeah, so just like a deputy governor. All right, fair enough. Interesting.
Yeah,
here I was thinking you guys trying to sneak the monarchy in the back door here. I'm like, Pennsylvania.
You guys know about quadratic voting?
Oh, is that what do you rank choice?
So yeah, basically,
is it rank choice?
It's not quite rank choice. It's more like decision making based on trying to get as much information from people as possible and finding a new answer that's not on the books, that's in between those answers. There's kind of a meso solution, a milieu of choice, the most fulfilled choice. Because if you say, hey, I want this and you want that, and neither one of us gets, or half of us doesn't get what we want.
Right. There's a shift that happened in politics that is reflected in society in terms of products, because there was a time in the fucking going into the 50s and the 60s where it's like things were made to last as long as possible because they're like, if you're trying to sell it to somebody, don't you want something to be as high quality as it can be? And there's a point where they were like, okay, well, we've been looking and asking people what they want to try and sell them. And there was like this shift that happened. You can see it in like Mad Men or whatever, where it's like, they're like, let's not ask people what they want. Let's tell them what they want in such a way that it's assumed that they want it, to the point that they're basically like hypnotized into wanting the fucking thing that they never thought they'd need. And so like, and also just, so that is also reflected in politics, where it's no longer like, hey, let's, as politicians, let's see what the people want and try and tell them that we're going to accomplish those things. It's as much as they can. Let's convince them that they want these certain things that we also want. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very directed. And it's a societal shift that took place in terms of our receptibility to people manipulating us in that particular way.
That's the thing too. So Liberal Party of Canada they always said they led by the polls, which was kind of a horrible way of doing it. I kind of like where it's principled people voting like on principles, and then you vote for them and they ride on those principles. The thing I hate about it is because if you get that poll based, like do what the people want, it just ends up being a pandering grift. It's always about who can get the most welfare out of the government at the time. But that's the problem, is that you're getting the worst of both worlds now. So you get both the pandering, like you were talking about, or what we get now with like the welfare state, but you're also getting, like you said, nobody's being told they're being mandated what they want anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's why I feel it's so quick to fucking embrace mandates, dude. Girl, please tell me what to do. Tell me what I want. Tell me what I need.
They talk about the Cortese paradox, which is that it's a majority prefers candidate A over candidate B, B over C, and yet C over A. When this occurs. Right. There's a problem. So what they do is they come up with degree of preferences. So how much do you not want the government to, restrain you and your family and make you do this or that? And so it becomes a problem because it replaced, like you just said, replaces negative governance, where people are saying, oh, I really want to make sure the government does not do this, with positive governance, which are the mechanisms of socialism, where they say, well, I really want to make sure the government, or I'd really like it if the government were to give my children education, give my family health care, all sorts of social services. They start to emerge in quadratic voting.
That's so weird. When you refer to it like that, like I want the government to do this, it almost makes them sound like they're a separate entity from the population, which totally goes against the whole idea of our political enlightenment, Which
goes against reality. I mean, it's a nice idea.
But you guys won't get this. Canada, Trudeau ran on updating our voting system. He wanted not the quadratic one. He wanted the ranked ballots. Mm-hmm. But then they won a majority, and then that just all went away. He's like, no, it's actually not the best time now. Wait till I have a minority government, and I won't be able to fill it up anyway.
I like the ranked voting. Is that okay, you guys?
I like
that. I don't think anything's going to be perfect or whatever, but I like the ranked voting. I think it's a better. It's a better direction. Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that you got to get a first past the poll winner to basically decide to do it. So you're asking somebody to tank their political career. So that's why I don't think it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You need some guy who's in there with I got cancer and I'm dead in 6 months. I could pass one bill. You need one of those.
Yeah.
Which
I don't feel like I can't really believe in anything that I say, since I fucking said at some point in 2016, I was like, there's no way Donald Trump is ever going to be president. We're going to have this goddamn Hillary bitch, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. And then, wow, no shit. So I have to eat my hat there. And I have to keep in mind in the future that I don't always know what's what. And so something like that, I could go like, oh yeah, ranked voting, not going to happen. And I'm like, you know what? What do I know?
Dude, you were the wisest among kings. The first
we should have
political pundit who has some self-awareness to say, I could be wrong. You just pretend like you never said it and just move on.
I like the dog mayor idea. I forget what city it is that has a dog mayor, but if we had a dog president and he just had buttons, the dogs are like, walk.
India,
walk.
They do that all the time.
That has the buttons on the ground it can step on and just makes
decisions that way. Where was the thing where there was some politician that said something about that he didn't like dogs or whatever, and it was these bumper stickers for a long time that say, I like dogs and I vote. Do you remember that? Do you ever see that? I don't know.
Yep. That was what that was for. It was related to that guy.
Wouldn't you like a dog president though that just steps on buttons on the ground to decide policy?
I mean, especially if it's got a neural link to
a euthanasia policy now, so I kind of don't want a dog stepping on them buttons. But yeah, in general.
But a human did that.
Yeah, fair.
But isn't a giant spider the head of the Catholic Church? So isn't that at least some?
Yeah, we need to start moving all the animals like the Egyptian gods into the AI. We'll have cats run cars because that'll be hysterical, and they'll have dogs in charge of the weather or something like that. And monkeys can run agriculture. We'll have just their brains.
Couldn't go that much worse, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I love you guys.
I actually have to get out of here.
I was about to point to actually, you know what? To be prudent, Seth, guys, check out Seth's Linktree. Make sure you listen to Christmas Time thing. We're gonna play it on the show pretty soon. I'm gonna work that out with you. Let's do that. I love this song. I can't show it. Can I do it? We'll do it next time. But like, guys, you just need to subscribe. This is the button. You click on this, go all, and then boom, like, bam. Now you've got access to the greatest.
Yeah, and follow me on Spotify too. I don't have very much traction on YouTube at all because it's just music videos, but
still, this is pretty sweet. I mean, I know that Adam's mom loved it, so I know
she's got great taste.
That's true, she does. And,
I like your Mandela effect thing too. That's genius, bro. Awesome.
Instagram is happening. Go to the Venice Beach Dub Club and you can watch his other shows. See, because he actually does Talkie Time, which is the best Instagram show in the world.
Yeah, my most recent Talkie Time was really good. I spoke about the spirit of Christmas and Father Christmas for the whole time, and like just really advanced philosophy stuff. I like philosophy. A lot of the stuff on this show is science, and like for half an hour I didn't talk because everything was going straight over my head. But
that never stopped me. Whatever.
Yeah, but go check out Talkie Time if you like general themes and just a nice chill hangout with good people.
Legit.
It's at 6 o'clock California time usually, not on Wednesday. So
we are trying to tackle the problems that no one can tackle, and at least like get them out there so people can start thinking about them with us. I agree. Ryan, the beautiful, the brave, the writer of Fuck Files. And also,
warning you now, I've stopped ship posting because of Christmas season, so no trolling.
I like that.
That's really sweet of you. You can find some of his old ship posting on YouTube here. You just go in here and find some of his videos. He's got a lot of really great stuff, actually.
Yeah. Well, there's actually like a body of work I'm grabbing from here. It's a lot of good stuff. But the big one now, just ryanstone.com/newsletter. I'm putting the final touches. I'm just waiting for my forward from author Rollo Tomasi. And then book 2, Fuck Files is book 1. Book 2 is going to be called Frame. It's essentially, like Mark Manson's models. It's like that, but it's good. Best way to describe it. There's a lot of work, a bunch of guys kind of in a praxeology. Tinkerers, like in the old days of science, putting stuff together about how to manage getting through life without letting everything get to you. That chaos that Peterson talked about. Oh, yeah, and the merch. The second channel, the gaming channel, merch has gone live. Dude, I wear this stuff so much, my girl tells me to stop and put on my normal clothes.
Well,
I love my merch.
Yeah, I might have to look into this. I can get down with
And Red Morning is the podcast. Oh, I love that thing too.
It's pretty sweet. Ladies. That's pretty sweet.
Fits an entire one of those cans of Bud Light, the can bottles.
I can fit it. Make sure you guys are subscribed on Twitter because you get a lot of his data there also along the way. And the Sync Tank for David Plate. Get down the links, the Sync Flicks. On the Sync Flicks, you'll find crazy synchronicity research, all sorts of movies synchronized and with albums and with gematria. I really like Starship Super Troopers. That's just some, come on, Starship Troopers with ABBA, Super Troopers. It's just brilliant. But, we just talked about a few others up there, and I definitely make sure if you haven't already seen it, I'm sorry, Cassandra, I misunderstood everything predicts 9/11 because it is the ultimate documentary, I would say, on how the world works. And at least in the 20th century, kind of Kabbalah, mysticist, architecture, everything.
Hey, could you show the art up there if you click on the link in the upper paragraph?
Yeah, let me get to the top here. And then...
Yeah, there's over 200 videos for free streaming and download on the site. So
while I go to art, really also just want to remind you, these are, legit. This is one of them, and they're just beautiful. I'm going to put it inside of a proper frame, and then I'm going to get a nice light so you can see them. But this is what they look like, and they're beautiful.
So if you click on any one of the images, then you can go to the my work website, and it's easy to order.
It should be loading. It takes a second to load, I think. Try that. But yeah, look at this stuff, man. It's brutal. There you go. And you can get yourself a copy of these things. And I know several people already have. So for those of you who have your special limited edition MK Ultrasound 723 David Plate merchandise, lucky you. I mean, Good job.
It's funny, Ryan. I didn't realize that I follow you on Twitter until I'm looking at your Twitter in front of me. And the same thing happened with Anomaly the other night. I was like, actually, I follow you on Twitter. Huh, I didn't even realize I was talking to the same person. Crazy.
That's funny. Yeah, it's definitely different in person. I'm much kinder, more pleasant.
Yeah, it is funny because it does feel like kind of schizophrenic. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Isn't this that nice Canadian boy that we met?
Of course it is. But if people aren't mad, they aren't clicking. Your fans will just look at stuff and then scroll on. The guy who hates you will retweet everything you do and never shut up about you. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I love what you do. I'm stoked on it. But guys, let's do it again soon. I'm sorry. I don't think MK Canada is going to happen tomorrow night. But I'm going to try to do something in the middle of the day. And then in the meantime, we'll see you soon. Much love.
Peace. Merry Christmas.